I googled how much money you should have saved by 30, and honestly, it made me laugh. I'm not here to tell you how much you should have saved, but I want to tell you what the data actually says, what the actual picture looks like, and what actually worked for me when I realized that I was not where I thought that I should be. When I turned 30, I opened my bank account and I felt a tiny pit in my stomach. Not because I was broke, I was not, but I didn't know if what I saw was the right thing. I didn't know if it was enough. Was I supposed to have more money, more assets? Was I right? Was I on time? Or was everything wrong? The internet says you should have 1 year of your salary saved. Fidelity says that. JP Morgan says that. But real people, most are below that line. So instead of spiraling into guilt, I decided to try to understand the gap. By 30, Fidelity says one time your salary. But the actual savings for people under 35 in the States, 4,500. When I first started digging into how much money people should have saved by 30, I found some pretty well numbers. These numbers usually come from big financial institutions, the kind that manages retirement plans and investments for millions of people. Fidelity, for example, is one of the largest in the US. They publish data related to savings by age. By 30, you should have around 1 year your salary saved. T. Rowe Price, another major investment company, suggests somewhere between half and one time your salary. And JP Morgan, one of the biggest global banks, goes a little bit higher. 1.1 times your salary if you earn around $80,000 a year. But here's the thing, these numbers are an ideal scenario. Stable income, no interactions, early start. The Federal Reserve, which tracks real data from real households, shows a very different picture. According to the Federal Reserve's 2022 Survey of Consumer Finances, the average balance across checking, savings, and money market accounts for Americans under 35 is about $20,540, while the median, what most people actually have, is just $5,400. Now compare that with the average salary of people around 30 in the US, which is $54,000 a year. Financial experts suggest to have at least 1 year salary saved, so it would be $54,000. The median is $5,400. It's 1/10. So yes, charts exist, but they describe a model, not a moral failure. Real life looks just messier. So let's read benchmarks for what they are. Tools, not verdicts. And use them to guide you, not to shame yourself. So what did I do? When I realized that I was not on track, I didn't start counting every coffee and chasing numbers. That kind of tracking really makes me anxious and does not work for me. I think it's not sustainable for the most of us. So what I did was starting with small check-ins. Every 3 to 6 months, I open the note app on my phone and jot down income, expenses, and a rough idea of how things were evolving. Then I would project what I thought that I could reach in a good amount of time, let's say other 3 months. That was kind of a goal and also a quiet reminder. This was the first step and was pretty helpful at the beginning. But then I found another tool that really changed the things for me. I created a simple net worth file that I update once a month. It was a game changer because it gave me a zoomed out view of what was going on. The idea is not to focus on the single transaction, but on the biggest picture. The difference is that it tracks the net worth, which is what I own minus what I owe. So it really shows progress over time. It is not about how much I spent last week, but how much I have built. And honestly, that perspective is powerful. Sometimes you don't realize how much you have accomplished and realize until you don't see it written down. And also, it's a great way to understand where you have to get better and improve. It's a really simple file. If you want the template, just write that in a comment and I will drop it for you. Beside that, I use my debit card for everything so that every transaction is tracked. I roughly know my spending categories and the amount of every category, but I don't focus too much on the single transaction. I do not microanalyze them. I just keep everything visible and clear to stay conscious of how much money are going and where, but I don't go too much in depth with the single transaction. There are endless rules that you could apply in order to save money. The 15% rule, the 50, 20, 30 rule. There are so many, it's a lot. But here is what I learned. There is not a better method than another. What's better is what actually works for you and feels sustainable in the time. For me, this method, which is far from perfect, works very well. I can be consistent with it and I can stick with it, which is what is actually more useful in the long term. Waiting is expensive, but not in the way you think. If you save $500 a month, starting at 32 with 8% returns, you will have about a million at 67. If you start at 30, it's a half. That's not a punishment, it is math. When I first saw the difference, it actually felt a little bit scary, but it is not supposed to be scary. It's literally just math, and once you understand that, it's actually very empowering. Because even a late start still works if you stay consistent. The important thing is start as soon as possible and always with a little bit of awareness and understanding of what you're doing, obviously. I want to share with you some practical habits that actually helped me. First, don't use credit cards but only use debit cards. Obviously, if you can. It really helps to keep your spending real and not abstract. Same goes for cash. I try to avoid cash as much as possible. Second, park your savings in a high-yield flexible account. Personally, I use Trade Republic because it offers a good rate and no lock-in. Third, use a smart spending accounts that give you points or cashback. For example, I use Revolut. I only keep monthly budget on there so that once it's gone, I'm done. Fourth, know your taxes. I really cannot emphasize enough this point. Above all, if you're a freelance, know your taxes. Don't get to the point where you have to pay and you do not have the money because you did not think in advance. Fifth, no emotional buying. Emotional buying is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. So what I generally do is thinking for at least a couple of days. So when I have this big urge to buy something, I let it sink for a couple of days and then I think about that again. I've been through it. I've been through this these days because I really want a new smartwatch to track my fitness progress, but I know that I don't need it. I really don't need it. So I'm waiting. I'm just waiting and watching reviews on YouTube in loop, but I will not buy it because I don't need it. No emotional buying. This is my favorite, the 10 times rule. Don't buy anything that you could not buy 10 times. So if I want something expensive, let's say I want to buy a bag that costs $500, I ask myself if I could buy 10 of that. If I can, then I can go ahead. Otherwise, it means it's not my time yet. Many habits are not about restrictions, they're about peace of mind. Once you define your rules and you follow them, you stick with them, everything becomes easier. Now you could say it's easy if you have a stable income. And you would be right. Privilege plays a role in this, obviously. But even if we won't get equal results, we will get equal awareness. You cannot control the market, but you can control your clarity. So, how much should you have saved by 30? Honestly, enough to feel safe if life throws something unexpected to you. In my opinion, the first goal should be an emergency fund, enough to cover, let's say, 3 months of expenses. That's the baseline. After that, you can build bigger goals. For example, 1 year of income as savings, could be a good goal if it feels realistic to you. But beyond that, numbers are just a snapshot and should not make you feel less. It's just a reference that you can have and you can keep in mind and can help you to set the next goals. But I really don't believe you should feel bad if you don't reflect those numbers or those statistics. One other thing that is very important to consider is lifestyle. For example, let's say I saved 50K, but I spent 10K every month. Those big money won't even be enough to cover 6 months of expenses. While maybe another person that saved just 10K but have a different lifestyle and spend only 1K a month is more advantaged compared to me. So I don't think it's about how big the numbers are, but how sustainable is the system. I started late. I wish I started earlier. I didn't have a proper financial education. We didn't talk about money at home, and they don't teach financial education at school in Italy, which I think is a big mistake. But I developed enough knowledge and awareness in order to be able to plan my future and to understand my habits. But it doesn't really matter when you start focusing on this topic. What really matters is the awareness and the freedom that comes from knowledge that you can develop. And there are so many tools right now that you can use. There are so many videos, content online, and also apps that can help you. So the important thing, I think, is start now. Even if you feel you are behind for your age, it doesn't matter. Just be aware of your current situation, of your habits, create a system, stick to it, and set the goals. In this way, you will get in control of things, which is the only thing you can actually do. At the end of the day, I truly believe that feeling and being in control of your own money is actually more important than the amount itself. But let's talk in the comments. Do you track your expenses or do you avoid it until it hurts?